This tale begins with Prince Khurram and Princess Arjumand meeting as teenagers in a bazaar where the princess was selling silks and jewels. Some sources say it was love at first sight, but the prince was already betrothed to another to facilitate a political alliance. After many intrigues of palace life, the two were finally allowed to marry several years later in 1612, when Arjumand became Khurram's third wife and forever his favorite, when he became ruler of the empire following his father's death in 1628 and was named Shah Jahan, or King of the World, and she became Mumtaz Mahal, the jewel of the palace. Mumtaz had always worked alongside her husband and was a trusted counselor, often accompanied him to his many battlefields over the years, enduring multiple pregnancies throughout their travels. It was near a battleground that Mumtaz gave birth to her 14th child in June of 1631, then died the following day of complications. It is said that Shah Jahan cried without ceasing for 8 days. He then declared a time of mourning throughout the empire for the next 2 years, during which time he began summoning artisans to build a monument to his beloved, one inspired by the Quran's description of heaven. Work began on the mausoleum in 1632, and it was finally finished in 1648 by 20,000 workers and 1,000 elephants.
And so that's the story of how probably the most photographed building in the world came to be as a mausoleum for Shah Jahan's favorite wife. And it's interesting to note that after he died, years later, they buried him in the same mausoleum right next to Mumtaz Mahal. And he had a couple of other wives, but they were buried outside of these grounds. So we didn't get to see where they're buried, but apparently their graves are outside of the gates. So this is the west entrance, as you can see. You first approach the west. There's an entrance on each side, by the way, west, east, and south. And you approach through the west side, which was the Imperial Road, the one that led from the Red Fort where they lived, over to the mausoleum here. And this is the outer courtyard that we're in now. So we're not actually in the Taj Mahal. This area here was built much later. That building over there on the right was the place where the workers lived when they were building it, I guess. That's what our guide said. Our guide is deep. That guy in the aviator sunglasses and the brown shirt right there. He seemed to be very knowledgeable. So you first come to this outer courtyard, and then you walk through the entrance, which you can see there up ahead. And what's surprising to me, interesting to me, is that India, which is of course mostly Hindu these days, has the most famous building probably in the world that is mainly Muslim architecture, because the Mughals were from the region of Afghanistan and areas around there, and they were all Muslims. So this is a very mosque-looking building. In fact, there's mosques on both sides of it, and there's minarets on all four corners. And this is cool. You can actually see the Taj through that opening right there when you're walking in, but because of the camera and the sun, you can't see it. It will appear as if out of the mist in just a minute. Thought it was cool. It shows up like it's misty outside, but it's really not. And there it is. Okay. So that's the mausoleum. You can see the 4 minarets on the side, and there's actually a mosque on both right and left sides. So we're gonna, there it's kind of simmering in the heat in this close-up. It was a very warm day, not terribly uncomfortable, but it was definitely not terribly uncomfortable, but it was definitely hot. The story of how we got here is really pretty interesting. The ship had 3 stops in Cochin and Goa and Mumbai. So we got off the ship as soon as we reached Cochin. We flew to Delhi, and they put us up at 5-star hotels, the ITC Myra in Delhi. And then we got up early the next morning and took a train, which they had acquired for us, reserved especially for just the 500 of us or so that were going here. The train normally would take about 2.5 hours to get from Delhi to Agra, but because of all the traffic on the train tracks that day, it actually took us 6 hours on the train to get there, but it was still fun. We enjoyed the train ride. And we stayed at the ITC Mogul in Agra, and another 5-star property. Wonderful meals both times. And then we were taken by bus over to a stop where we picked up some golf carts, and they drove us to the west entrance where you saw us come in. So here we are approaching. Now, one thing to know about what is so famous about this structure is the inlaid marble. The marble craftsmanship of the white Agra marble, and they inlay precious stones in the marble to make it look absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, you cannot film inside the mausoleum. So with all this buildup, you're not going to be able to see the inlaid marble craftsmanship that it's so well known for. You can see the marble carvings and whatnot on the outside, but not the inlaid marble. So you go through, you walk around inside the mausoleum, and you come out the backside, and this is the river that is behind the Taj, and over you can see the minarets on the side, and there's a mosque on both sides, one down there and one the other direction. But the Red Fort, where Shah Jahan was imprisoned at the end of his life with his 100 concubines, is right there where the sun is. You can't really see it behind that minaret. But he lived the last part of his life there and could only look out over. Yeah, he could only look out over the. So we went back to the hotel, stayed overnight, got up early the next morning, and then we flew from Delhi. We took a bus to Delhi, and from Delhi we flew back to Goa, where we met the ship, and then took the ship from Goa up to Mumbai for a couple of great days in Mumbai. So I'll have some posts on all the things we did when we were back in Mumbai.